So when you were in the R&D phase and you were, going about figuring out what your base was going to be, how you were going to create it, what was the next step then? Were you actually just testing recipes first, or did it more come like from the lab side of you were looking for a specific consistency, flavor, and nutritional value, or were you really just like in the kitchen putting stuff together and saying, well, this tastes and looks good. How could we then reproduce this at scale?
It's a little bit of everything. Like what we do is really like art, science, culinary, like all together. And so, we have nutritional targets, we had flavor targets, and really try to figure out how to get to the place where you can have a product that is no compromises for all eaters. So whether it's a meat eater that, cares about, always if you're vegan, probably a million times have been like, where do you get your protein from? Making sure the product has protein, making sure the product has the right nutrients that people know, expect. And for, the plant-based eater, it's, there is a lot of backlash against ultra-processed plant proteins and meat alternatives. It's making sure that the ingredient list and the process is in line with what all eaters are looking for. So I think it took a while because it's like getting to a place where you can actually check all the boxes and not compromise is, easier said than done.
It is definitely, and we go in with some good ideas and then think about, well, how would I actually pull that off? But you seem to be doing it. So you had a really great launch in the market. People are really picking up on it. As far as the branding, definitely, I feel like people are more recognizable, the Prime Newts brand, which is really great. But when you were starting the company, so you have a product and you're ready to kind of start bringing it to market, what was the next step then to start getting it produced at scale? Because you need to, like you said, you were actually growing the fungi, right? So what does that look like then to be able to source those ingredients? Did you have to set up your own, I guess, manufacturing plant to do that? Or were you able to work with suppliers where you were finding the ingredients that you needed? And what does it look like now?
Well, we definitely had to do everything ourselves because I think one of the things is, there's no one else that does what we do, and so there's no, suppliers or plug-in solutions. So we had to build everything out ourselves. So we're based in Berkeley, California, which is where the company started, and we expanded our footprint. You have a manufacturing plant. And yeah, we had to figure it all out ourselves.
And so, what does that look like now as you're getting, I think, more market penetration and really getting the word out about your product? Scaling is always a huge issue for entrepreneurs. How are you tackling that now, and how are you able to, I guess, stay in line with your growth expectations and needs to, make it a successful business?
So we've been like good at planning out, and so we have a lot of capacity at the moment. And we'll figure out how to scale up as needed. Our process now is pretty streamlined. And so we've been able to really hone in on how to make the products, efficiently at scale, having the same quality, and yeah, just doing everything at scale. So we're lucky because we've been able to troubleshoot and do everything within, under our own roof. And then yeah, we'll see what the future holds.
So I totally forgot to ask you this in the beginning, but when you're first developing the product, you mentioned your mom as a chef. Who were your first taste testers for this? Where were you getting the first feedback of you were on target, or how did that come about?
Well, definitely my mom was part of that. But just also just like random people. I think like sometimes friends and family, or even like people in the office are not the best taste testers because they're familiar with the product, know what's happening. And so like we fed a lot of just like random people in our like office building that we didn't know. Like, hey, try this thing, let us know. And I think some of the most interesting feedback is from people who've never had meat before. They're like, I don't know what this tastes like, but it tastes good. And then you like get down to it and they're like, oh, you've never had meat before, but you still think this tastes good, which, is one of the kind of it's funny because a lot of people love meat eaters and sometimes vegans, they always say, hey, like, why don't you just make something that doesn't really taste like meat? Or like, why do vegans want to eat things that like look and taste like meat when they're vegan, right? It's because like as a society, it's like widely the widely the protein source that people consume. It's cultural, like that's just how things are. And so having that frame of reference, having that point that's easy to swap, but also to try, um, and people like the taste of meat. Like a lot of these never eaten meat before people, they're like, I like it. I would eat it. I don't have a frame of reference. Oh, I guess this is probably the closest thing to eat the meat that I've eaten. And it like gets you to remember it's like I think people eat meat in spite of how it's made, not because of how it's made, And so it's because, it's a source of protein. It hits all of the, the needs and the cravings that we have. And it's great that we can now actually replicate that with fungi.
Well, you hit on something really important there. The